In preparation for the Swift Student Challenge for 2026, I've been thinking a lot about what software I want to submit and build, and I've thought about maybe some musical synthesizers was one idea, and another idea I've had and I've settled on is a monthly budgeting app. And this is something that I think will have a significant sort of benefit to anyone who uses it. It's based off this template that you can find if you've got a Mac and you open up Numbers. It's this monthly budget template, so it has a budget and it has your transactions. And in the past, when I've written up monthly budgets, I've used an adapted version of this in spreadsheets, and it's been quite good and it's worked quite well. But I think there's some room for improvement, and I think sort of centralizing this process in a free and open source software that anyone can access is a really good thing. And I think there's some really cool avenues I can explore for submitting for the Swift Student Challenge, as well as just having some sort of software that I'm writing that's beneficial to me, because at the end of the day, if no one else uses the software but me, but I can use it and it works well, it's reliable, and there's some value that I get out of it, that's really all that matters. So I have this public GitHub repository that I've created for the software. It's called Tāku Rawa. It's a monthly budgeting software. It translates to my wealth, and it's intended just as a better way of managing and viewing sort of your income and your expenses as they come in over time. And it's meant to be easy to set up. It's meant to be easy to use, and well, that's my goal and that's my mission with it. The purpose of these videos as well is to provide sort of weekly or bi-weekly updates around how I'm progressing with what I'm creating and building, and just to share a little bit about the project and anything interesting I found. So in particular, in this video, I'm going to be showing you how I make requests to the Akahu API, which is a New Zealand banking API, and this is how I can retrieve data from my personal bank account. If you are wondering if you can sort of grab my API keys in this video, no is the answer. I'm very careful that I'm not going to be publishing. I'm not going to be putting these on the public repo. I'm not going to be showing them to you. And even if they did slip somehow, I've locked down my Akahu developer account a lot. So all that you'll be able to find is how much money I have in two of my accounts, which you're going to see today anyway. So I'm going to start out by pulling up the Xcode project. This is all available. What I'm showing you now is all available on GitHub at the moment. If I open up the main Swift file, you'll see we have a window group that renders the content view. If we come to content view, we have this preview here of this dashboard view. So there's a lot of embedded views, and that's because I plan, and I haven't documented this plan other than on a bit of paper. I haven't written this down. I haven't made it formal yet, how I want my app view hierarchy and models to work, but I will get there. This is just the first of many videos. So we call this dashboard view because I want to have three views: a dashboard, a budgeting view, and a transactions view. And that's meant to sort of align similarly with this template where you've got a budget and you've got your transactions. And that's similar to how I've also managed my budget in the past, where I'd plan how much I wanted to spend for each month, and then I'd actually track what I was spending. And I hope by integrating this with the Akahu API that it'll just sort of automate that process of looking through transactions and make that a lot easier and sort of easier to get that data and to understand that data, because that's something I struggled with a lot. I'd spend hours just going through transactions. This is what I'm spending, and it didn't it can work well, but it takes a long time. I could be sitting for 4 or 5 hours going through a month's worth of transactions. So if we come to our views here, you can see we have the budget, we have a dashboard and transactions. If I use dashboard and overview, they're just interchangeable words at the moment. If we come to budget, what is it? Dashboard is the view I've created. I've neither created views for transactions or budgets yet. We can come to this dashboard view and we can see it previewed here. It wants an app token and a user token, and you can get this by registering for an Akahu developer account. I would recommend doing this only if you sort of know a little bit about programming, or maybe if you want to get into it, but just be wary that this is connected to your personal account and you can make payments, you can view all of your transactional history through this API, so you do want to be careful about it. So this dashboard view, it defines these I'm just going to call it these strings that the user will input, so our app token and our user token. So they're defined with this at state. I don't actually know what you'd call that, but you use it if you've got data, you've got a variable that can change based on like a UI input, I think. That's my understanding of it. There might be some more to it. Maybe I'll add a comment to look that up. So what is the purpose of at state? Sometimes if you've been doing, I've been learning Swift on and off for a few years now, and if you've been doing something for a long time, it can be really easy to just do it and not really think about what it means. It sometimes has caught me out in the past. So what I define next is this VStack. So this is a vertical stack of these two secure fields. I'm not using text fields because I am going to show you this connecting and calling to the API, where I pass in the app token and the user token, which are both data that can change within the Swift view. And there's a button to fetch the account data. It's going to call an asynchronous method, so it's not going to be blocking or stopping the main program from running. It's going to pass in the user token and the app token that the user passed into this interface here. And what it's going to do then is store the result. It's an array of accounts, or sorry, the model type is account, which I can actually show you here. The model type is account, and this conforms to how the Akahu API like sends you back the response, the JSON response. So it conforms to that. It's decodable, so it matches the response, and we can create an array of accounts that hold data such as the name of the account, the type of the account, status, balance, which is another array, which we need another struct for, which is also decodable, which has your current, available, different sort of properties around it. If I look at the documentation here, we look at the API reference, the first thing that it's going to show is how you can get all accounts. So this is the request that I'm making. It is a GET request, yes it is, to this API endpoint. We pass in our Akahu ID, our app, and our user token, I think, is actually needed. And the different responses that we can get, if it's successful, we'll get just a success response and an items array, which is an array of account objects that we created. So it's gonna contain information such as the name, the balance, which is another object itself, which has currency, current, available, limit, and whether or not the account is overdrawn. So it's a very easy to understand API, I think. One that's easy to implement into this application. So we'll come back to our dashboard view. We make that API call, which we'll look at in just a second, and then we have this for each loop, which looks at the accounts variable here And once we have data for those account balances and information, we can loop through, we can iterate over each account, we can look and display the name, and we can display the balance. So I have another, it's this account summary card view, which isn't shown yet because there's no information in the accounts array. So you'll see what that looks like shortly. So in terms of making the API call, if we come to the networking folder here, I have this Akahu service.swift file that I've created. I have the struct here. It's called get all account responses, or response, sorry. It's decodable. It has that success. I think it's a success key, and it has the items key, which is an array of accounts. And the reason that I have that is because before we can access the accounts, which have their own unique ID, name, balances, etc., we have to the JSON that we get, the JSON response we get back for this particular endpoint has a different format. So this was just an easy way for me to access and return only these accounts by creating this get all account responses that we use in this function here. So this fetch accounts data, it takes in the user token and the app token, and it returns an array of account or accounts is how I like to think about it. That's how I've designed it. And the information, so it's defined as I've created this model here of account, which I showed before, and that has all the banking information. So I create this URL here to the Akahu accounts endpoint. I've guarded it just in case it's a bad URL, but I'm to be honest, I'll probably do a little bit more research on why you would do this. I mean, if this endpoint was to change, then this would sort of throw an error back. So if it's pointing to a resource that doesn't exist, then the code would stop there, and we wouldn't have to try making a request to a bad endpoint or an endpoint that might be compromised or something. We then create I create a request object based on that URL. I define the request method type, so it's a GET request that I'm making, and that's seen here under the Akahu docs. I add two headers, so my user token and my app token, and I think they've put that in their guide actually. If I go to accessing account data, when you make a request, I think this is, maybe it's just for a personal app, I'm not too sure, but you want to pass in your user access token as well as your app access token in the header of the GET request. So I've done that here with these two lines. I've sort of added that header using the add value to this request that we're making to this API endpoint or URL. We then make that request. We use this URL session object with the .shed and .data properties or function, I suppose, to actually get that response and make that GET request. We make sure before we decode that JSON request whether we just check whether or not it was successful. So maybe the users entered in this demo application, maybe the users entered an app token that doesn't exist or a user token that doesn't exist. And so we can look for those errors there. We might get a 403 error if it's unauthorized, I think, and it'll stop this function from running further. Then we can try and decode that JSON response that we get back. So we pass in this model here, so get all account responses, because this is how we expect the JSON response to look. We'll have a key that has success and or some data that can be assigned to the success part of this model, and then the items, which are our accounts. And we do that from the data that we received from the request that we made, which is this here. And if it's successful, so we actually, I don't think it's needed, because we have this, I put this in here and I put this second layer in here. But if the decoded JSON .success key is true, then we'll return the array of accounts, which is the items key, and we return the value, which is accounts here. So I'm going to show you what that looks like, and then in future updates, probably not visual updates like this, but I will actually go in and comment this, so it's sort of, I'll clean it up a little bit. If you're wondering, it's not AI coded. I'm not a big fan of vibe coding, but I also am still learning the language, and so there's some concepts and parts of the code that I'll research and I'll test and it will work, and I have some understanding for, but my explanations aren't as strong yet. That's just gonna, with time and practice and doing it a lot, I think that'll get better. So I'm gonna go and run the application so you can see what it looks like. The build was successful. We already had an instance open. Whoops. I think I closed the wrong instance of the application. There are some errors. So what we're going to do is we can enter the user token, the app token and the user token, which I have here. So our user token, I'm going to copy, and our app token, I'm going to copy, and I'm just going to minimize that. And I really, really hope I don't have to just edit some sort of blur onto that. If that was possible to see it, it might be. Come back to our application, and I've got the user application token and the application token and the user token. If I select fetch account data, it's going to call that asynchronous function. It's going to wait until it gets a response, and it's going to decode that based on the account model that I created. So they're going to, each of these is like the card here, the account summary card that I created, has the name of the account and it has the balance of the account. So my vision's not all that great, but we've got $20 in my checking account and $800 in my everyday account. It's only 2 of the accounts that I'm testing with, so I haven't included other accounts that I have on my sort of banking app, but it's enough to get me started, and it's enough to prove that the API works. So it's a pretty cool, simple method for using the Akahu API. This has just been a sort of brief verbal introduction to the project, as well as the code progress that I've made until today. And I will at some point go through and just sort of refine this and go through it and sort of explain a little bit about what each part of the code does, enough that I understand it better. Enough that I understand it better, because it's such a complex language, I think, and there's so much you can learn about it. But if you have enjoyed this video and you want to check out this project, it's available publicly on my GitHub. You can read a little bit more about the project and sort of where I want this to go. But at the end of the day, if it's just me who gets some benefit out of this, I'm okay with that. Although it is nice, and part of the reason of making it public is to be able to share some of this code and some of these ideas around learning to develop software, I suppose. And so I think that pretty much wraps it all up. If you want to learn more about the Akahu API, just look up Akahu New Zealand, and it's pretty well documented there. If you want to get in touch, you can do that through my website, angusq.com. And what I'll most likely do is just put like a written walkthrough guide or some sort of technical notes up that document a program steps like this, or program features that I'm writing in a little bit more detail. So if you've enjoyed the video, leave a thumbs up, consider subscribing. If you have any feedback, let me know, and I'll be posting another update shortly.